All right, well, let's go ahead and get started. I'll start by sharing a few words about Churches for Middle East Peace and introducing our incredible panelists and facilitator today. Again, we're so grateful to have you with us. My name is Destiny Magnet. I'm the Programs and Outreach Manager here at Churches for Middle East Peace. Churches for Middle East Peace is a coalition of 35 and growing member denominations and communions that range from Catholic and Orthodox traditions to Protestants, peace churches, and evangelical communities. So we're very grateful for the ecumenical nature of our organization and the diversity of perspectives, theologies that this allows us to bring to this important work of peace building. Our central mission here at Churches for Middle East Peace, or CMEP, is to help church organizations, leaders, and individuals across the U.S. and the world advocate in a knowledgeable, timely, holistic, and effective way for peace across the Middle East with a particular focus on Palestine and Israel. CMEP activists, board, and staff engage directly with policymakers at every level, and we do our work across three major areas to educate, to elevate, and to advocate. Today, at this webinar, Beyond the Headlines, featuring voices of Palestinian women in journalism and media, we are very, very excited to be working at the intersections of the education and elevation portions of our work to highlight and hear from three incredible women working at the intersections of journalism and media in Palestine. I want to very briefly introduce our three panelists, as well as Tamar Haddad, who's our facilitator today, and we'll also share more about our And Still We Rise Women's Empowerment Initiative. This webinar is part of our And Still We Rise broader series, and we are looking forward to introducing you to that work, as well as hearing from our incredible voices today. So I'll start first with Tamar. Tamar Haddad is the current full-time And Still We Rise coordinator here at Churches for Middle East Peace. She has also previously served as the project manager for gender and justice at the Evangelical Lutheran Church in Jordan and the Holy Land, and currently panels at the UN Commission on the Status of Women while volunteering as a regional coordinator at the Lutheran World Federation, and she is based in Jerusalem. Now to move to our fantastic panelists, I'll start with Fatin Alwen, who is a seasoned storyteller and journalist. She narrates the stories from the heart of conflict zones, serving as a correspondent for AJ Plus Arabic and TRT World. Fatin braves dangers fearlessly, working to uncover untold stories and the human reality in war-torn Palestine. So welcome, Fatin. It's so good to have you with us. Next is Rana Abu Farha, who is a senior journalist and program presenter with over 15 years of professional experience in national media. She is a founding staff member at Ma'an News Agency, the largest independent Palestinian news organization. She is also the host of Ma'an 24, a live weekday program which traces the events of Palestine and the political world. We're so grateful to have you with us as well, Rana. And then finally is Rula Salameh, who's a veteran journalist, community organizer, and the education and outreach director in Palestine for Just Vision, an organization that fills a media gap in Israel-Palestine through independent storytelling and strategic audience engagement. In addition to her work with Just Vision, Rula is also the host of Philistine Al Khair, which Philanthropy in Palestine, one of the most popular TV shows in Palestine. So we have an incredible group for you all today. And with that, I am so pleased to turn the virtual microphone over to Tamar Haddad to kick us off and share a little more about And Still We Rise.
Thank you so much, Destiny, and welcome to our panelists. I don't know if you know, but these women here are pretty famous in Palestine, so we are very grateful to have them here. We are proud of them as women and just for me as a Palestinian as well. So basically, we wanted to have this webinar back in May to commemorate Shireen Abu Akleh's death that took place back in May 2023. And it's also a space to honor our women journalists. Also, as part of And Still We Rise, our women empowerment program, we thought, how can we elevate our Palestinian women? And this would be one way. And Still We Rise is happening. The summit is taking place in Jericho this year from the 15th until the 17th of November, and all the women are invited. Also, first day, men are welcome as well. So basically, I am going to ask these women a few questions, and if any of you have questions at the end, again, please put them in the chat, and there will be a Q&A space for everyone at the end to share their own questions with the panelists. So the first question, which is for everyone, is what is it like to be a Palestinian woman journalist in particular? What are the difficulties you face, and what is it like?
Should anyone want to answer, or how does it
Go
go?
ahead.
Anyone?
Um, I I really sometimes, like when we say women in Palestine and like journalists in Palestine, the most beautiful thing about the journalism world that females started the hard work core of putting the Palestinian story out there, starting from Shireen and Juvara, Daniela Khalaf, most like the great names that did put the story out there was mostly female. And that's the beauty of female journalists in Palestine, that they managed from the beginning to be the hardcore of the storytelling and delivering this news with all the sincerity and the courageousness, with all the toughness and the tenderness that a woman can have inside of her. And this is why I think the Palestinian story was unlike any other story covered, because it was covered with the sensation of a woman that understand when to balance emotions over common sense, and when to balance or overcome common sense over emotion, and giving that mix of a story that will always engage you mentally and emotionally in putting the story out there. And because we are women, most of the people will think because we are women in the Middle East, and automatically it's harder when it comes to challenging, taking over places where men are used to it. This didn't happen in Palestine. And proudly, I will say it, that most female women did not have most of the problem that when a woman enter into a men-dominated section will have, like harassment, unequal opportunities, or sexual harassment, or all this. On the contrary, the women in Palestine managed to widely enter that world without encountering any, or at least me and the huge female journalists that I know, we were respected in the field. Maybe the only disrespectful was the Israeli army dealing with us and using our sexuality as a way to sexually abuse you in the field. But other than that, it's the story of the Palestinian journalist is so inspiring for me, because they were kick-ass in the field. Yeah.
That's lovely to hear. And I don't know if anyone wants to add anything else. If not, I can move on to the next question.
I just wanted to add something, just a little bit. I totally agree with what my colleague Fatin just said. I also wanted to add that when I decided that I want to go to journalism, I remember very well that Shireen Abu Akleh was the inspiration to me. She was the courses, the books and the studies and everything I learned was first from Shireen. She was like the name. She was the one. She was the strong, not only woman. We've seen her as the journalist in the field. It wasn't about gender or something. It was about Shireen Abu Akleh, the name, her name. So yes, I'm so proud today to be a journalist in Palestine, in this diverse community, and maybe we'll talk more about it later. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing. I think she's an inspiration to all of us. And I know for Palestinian journalists in general, I think we have this problem because we're under occupation and all of that. Even media coverage somehow doesn't make it as well as it does in other countries around the world. Like our story is always shifted or changed in a way. And how do you handle that? And how do you make sure that the actual image reaches the outside world? What do you do about it? And how difficult is it for you to get the actual message out there?
I'll take this question and I'll say that from my experience for the last 20, 25 years working in media and journalism in Palestine, like with local and with international organizations, usually it's not only the Palestinian or the local media, it's in general the media, the international media, like do not highlight stories about women, same as they highlight stories about men. Since I believe that, and what I saw in the last maybe 15, 20 years, that always media like to highlight violence and those who are using weapons and those who are fighting the occupation using violence. And until recently, most of these actions were men were leading this and not women in Palestine. Women were taking the part of which is maybe unreported work, which is if we return back to the first Intifada, where women were on the front lines, but they were supporting men, they were collecting the stones, they were hiding young people like activists in their homes, they were supporting them, they were the one who will take them out from the hands and the arms of the soldiers. They raised men to be who they are, raised them to take care of themselves and also to kind of like protect their country and be activists. And I think this is like in general that these voices, women voices, were not there in most of the media. And this is why when we return back to talk about the first Intifada and different films, and when we did our film Naila and the Uprising, we heard from men in Palestine about what women used to be and used to do during the first Intifada. Women first decided during that period not to mention what they used to do because for different reasons, for security reasons, they were afraid that their family members, especially men in their family, prevent them from being active, prevent them from going outside. They were a little bit afraid that women will be arrested, women will be taken to the Israeli prisons. So kind of like to protect them. And these stories will hide. When we start looking about like models, Palestinian females models, we found like hundreds of females within the Palestinian community who were active, doing a lot of things, but they said that we did not really, as women, felt that this is something important to mention it to the media. They were hiding these stories, but men were on the other side. They were the one in the streets, and the media always highlight and run after men and highlight their stories and interview them. And like women, with everything they did and everything they are doing so far, even in Gaza these days, you can see that men are talking about what they are doing, and women, you can see different stories, but it's not really a lot of stories about women and what they are doing and how they protect their family and how they are running to bring food and medicine and things to their children. So women were kind of like decide to be maybe far away from the media at the beginning, but of course, as my colleague said, that recently, of course, there's a lot of female women in the last maybe 10, 15 years. They were like the most popular. They were doing a lot of great work on the field, and Shireen was like on the top of this list.
Yeah. And Fatin, I know you are close or were close friends with Shireen. She was your colleague, and I wonder if you can just like tell us a little bit about her, what she was like, and so on.
I'm still afraid of Shireen.
Yeah. I love
Don't
that.
talk about her in the
I
past.
love that.
Yeah. You know, even like it's almost 2 years now, but until today, it's amazing how she's still present. In every single day, she's still present. What was so different about Shireen, that she was reporting on the story that she's living every day, suffering from it every day, especially that she's from Jerusalem as well. She never took the report as a mission. She took it as personal as it can be. And I remember on several reports away from the breaking news, because what made Shireen Shireen was looking beyond the story and personalizing the story, humanizing the story in all aspects, in all means. So you will find all journalists running this way. You will find Shireen looking the other way for the unfold story. And she's she's a human. She doesn't report the story because someone wants her to report it. No, she dig into the report. I remember many times that whenever there's like big number of martyrs, first thing you do for journalists, they run to the mother or the son or the father. How do you feel? It's kind of the organization that we started building a long time ago, that before you put the microphone or your camera in front of a mother who just lost her child, respect her feeling, respect her humanity, talk to her as a human, estimate the situation. If you feel that it's fair and she's emotionally ready to talk, then you will talk. Respect the place that you are in. And I remember many times that we walked away from a place where the story is right there in front of you, but you need to be a user and abuser of those feelings of loss inside of this house in order to report the story. And we decided to walk away from it and give the family time to grieve and then return emotionally. So what was so special or so special about her is how respectful as a human being to the people in front of her. At the same time, she is logical in all aspects. Shireen never been shot in her whole life. Anyone on her team was never injured even, because she always calculate that if she's going to a big mission, she will ask who's the cameraman. And the more dangerous, the more that she put away someone who has like a son or a kid. And she asked their permission if they want to join on it. Is it okay for them to join on it? It's not like you're taking an order from your boss. So even on this, it was different. She's courageous. She knows how to calculate her steps. And the difference between me and Shireen is usually whenever I see the story, I run to it. And sometimes I don't really calculate. And this is why the line that she was using all the time, that she's going to bury me in one of those demonstrations. And then the destiny surprise was it happened vice versa. Though for her, she was emotionally ready that she's going to bury me first, because to her, I'm irrational. And, I run to the situation without calculating things. But for Shireen, she's present in all the story, in the way, in the style, even in her sayings at the time of like craziness, like her famous line, "بدها طولة نفس," like no matter how hard, and you keep hearing it, even with this war in Gaza, you keep hearing it. So being human is hard as a journalist, because sometimes you have to stand one step away from a huge scoop or a huge story and then decide to walk away from it because emotionally you're going to hurt someone's feeling.
And Fatin, what was it like to lose her? How did it affect you? And where can we, as women journalists, as women, as Palestinians, go from here? What does her death teach you in a way?
No one is ready for, and especially with Shireen, like until today, you talk about her in the past, present, and for me, she's traveling in Brazil and she's taking her time enjoying it to come back. But it's not really a question that can anyone answer. It's a painful reminder all the time. And I'm sitting on her chair because she had her corner in the house. She's a family member, yani. So you have her pictures all around the house, and she's present in everything. Um, so how was it? It's fucked up. Excuse my French, yani. It's not a thing that that any mind can understand it or deal with it, especially the way that it happened. Like sometimes, like now with all the journalists that we lost, and we're still getting news. Like right now, they bombed an area in Gaza, and they already killed 2 journalists, and other are injured, and we're still getting the news as I'm talking to you. It's not a thing that you ever prepared, and not especially in a situation with the calmness and the brutality, the way she was killed, in this calmness of the situation was so disgusting, to a point where you cannot even have enough answers to it. And until now, until now, what we say in Arabic, we didn't take our revenge in putting the asshole who took to pull the trigger and end a beautiful life like this. He was not punished. He's still moving around, maybe killing more Palestinians. And I remember that I said, like, this will open a new era, and the new era is what we're seeing in Gaza, and the huge number of journalists that are being killed in cold blood without any punishment. So luckily she had a big name, and luckily she opened a big window. Like even in that day, she was on a bigger mission, a mission that is still going, that it's not okay to kill a Palestinian and go on. We're still fighting in courts until now to take her rights back. So that's the new era she opened, and she taught everyone. Like now, I remember every Palestinian who was killed by Israeli army, first thing the family does is they run to bury him. After Shireen, no, they wait in a hospital. They do exam. They do autopsy, whatever, تشريح. And they have a whole record. So they will have a solid case after that. So no, I'm not gonna go away easily, and my right will be there to fight for.
And Fatin, thank you for reminding us that like Shireen and journalists like her live within us. I think it's very important to remember that. And even those who are not dying, either it's Shireen or the journalists, like almost all journalists in Gaza died, or some of them had to leave. But Rula, if you can tell me a little bit about other struggles that Palestinian journalists go to because of Israel, like they are always under attack. And what does that attack look like? I know it can be physical, it can be in other ways. What can you tell us about that?
Thank you, Tamar. Thank you, Fatin, for sharing the stories about Shireen. I can say that as a Palestinian journalist who was born and raised in Jerusalem, and my work daily is in the West Bank, so I have to go from Jerusalem to Ramallah, Jenin, Nablus, Bethlehem, Hebron, and other places. And every time I don't want to say that since the 7th of October, because the occupation did not start on the 7th of October or after the 7th of October. We are facing a lot of problems, checkpoints, and the soldiers stop us or prevent us from entering a place or a city, search the cars, prevent us from crossing the checkpoints, ask us to return back. Many times this happened. Like I can say that 3 to 4 days a week, I'm traveling to the West Bank to cover stories, to help people to get their stories out, to do my work. My work with Just Vision is to take Just Vision films and screen it in different communities, talk about empowering women, talk about stories about resisting the occupation in a non-violence way, talk about like our films that we spend years in producing films to find like a Palestinian Gandhi who's like a kind of like a Palestinian model, so other Palestinian young men and women can follow their steps. Doing the work in the West Bank is really, really hard, used to be hard, and these days it's in some places it's impossible. Like I was in the Jordan Valley just before 3 days. It's really hard to enter. You can see the soldiers stopping the cars, checking the IDs, and then okay, you have an Israeli ID, Rula, so you are not allowed to enter. So we have to return back and use other checkpoints. Many times they were stopping us and preventing us from taking photos or filming, and many times they said that the cameras will be confiscated and we have to stop ours before they return back the cameras to us. It's hard to do any kind of work, and like there is no freedom of movement. There is no freedom of speech, Tamar. Like you can't even write or post or repost anything after the 7th of October. Before that, I used to have my bi-weekly column at Ma'an about different things about the Palestinians, about settlers, what they are doing, about burning homes by the settlers in Huwara, in other villages in the West Bank. After the 7th of October, I can't, because I know that many Palestinian journalists in Jerusalem, they were stopped and they were taken to prison under administrative detention. Like, so imagine that I can't write or I can't post, I can't repost anything about Gaza. Even if like I'm saying that ceasefire, I'm calling for ceasefire in Gaza, I would be stopped and questioned by the Israelis. That like at the first 2 months and a half, the checkpoint to Ramallah, the Kalandia checkpoint, which is the main checkpoint to Kalandia, to Ramallah, was closed. Many times that you find yourself in Nablus, and then they closed all the entrance and the exits to Nablus, and from Nablus to other places. I remember that I was on my way from Tubas to Ramallah when the settlers attacked Huwara. And maybe my Israeli car is the only reason that I'm still alive, because they recognize me as like a settler or the Israeli car or a Jewish car. I don't know, but this is why I have to hide my Palestinian colleague who's wearing hijab. I don't want them to recognize that she's a Muslim, or we are Arab, or we are Palestinians. So I have to hide her in the front chair and tell her not to say anything until I negotiate with the soldier that I need to cross the checkpoint and return back to Jerusalem. And it took me like around an hour and a half, and I saw the settlers attacking the Palestinian homes, and I heard by myself the Palestinians asking for help. And I was on the like middle. I don't know if I need to return back to Huwara, they will recognize that I'm Palestinians, and I don't know what will happen to me. And if I would return back to Ramallah and like continue my way, all the way to Ramallah and then back to Jerusalem, I was hearing the sounds of the Palestinian women and children crying and shouting. So this is, it's really difficult. Like we are maybe the only people here around the world that every time we have to check our telephones and messages and hear what's going on in the West Bank, what happened in Nablus, what happened in Jenin. And many times, like we can't arrange any meetings for next day, because we don't know if we can cross the checkpoints, if we can go to the West Bank. Like every day, it's a challenge, a day for us. We don't know if we will continue doing what we are doing or we have to change our schedule. My work with Just Vision was affected like from the first day after the 7th of October, because I used to work with the universities, with the schools, with the different cultural centers within the refugee camps, screening films and open discussion around different topics. And this was kind of like canceled every time I'm trying to arrange like a screening or a meeting or anything, even a field visit. I find myself that I have to cancel this meeting because of the occupation. I never lived one day in a like a free Palestine state, like since I was born until now, we live under occupation. Everything, like my life, my personal life was affected by the occupation, because I have to choose either to stay with my son here, who was born in Jerusalem, or to go to Dubai, United Arab Emirates, and stay with my husband, who don't have Israeli IDs. And then I have to choose and stay with my son to keep his birth certificate and his Israeli ID, because I know once I leave Jerusalem, I will never they will never allow me to return back with my son. So even like sometimes you have to choose. Imagine in only in Israel this happened. Only under the Israeli occupation this happened, that they divide the family, like a mother and the kids in Jerusalem, and the father and his family in the West Bank. So they have to rent two houses, one in Jerusalem to keep their Israeli IDs, and the other one in the West Bank, so the family can sit together, live together as a family. This is only in Palestine. This is only under the Israeli occupation.
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine what the struggle is like for journalists. I know all Palestinians suffer, but it's just interesting to hear how journalists in particular suffer because of being under occupation. And I know that, Jana, you also do a lot of on-ground work, especially in the West Bank. So if you can also share a little bit about your experiences, what is it like? What have you faced that made you basically stop doing your work as a journalist?
I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I'm unmuted now. Sorry. Okay. Let me say first that as journalists today, we all do have a big challenge, or maybe challenges, but one of the biggest challenges we do have today, that's how to give hope to people. To me, as Palestinian in the first place, and after almost 11 months of the war, I do work on this side. Like I need to have this side. I need to find hope in each thing, in each paragraph, in each material, in each live I share, and give hope to people. Whenever you're in the street, for example, I go even shopping, or I'm with my kids in the streets or everywhere, people come and ask me, Rana, is anything going to happen? Is there going to be ceasefire soon? What happened with the negotiations? What's happening in Cairo and Al-Qahira? What's happening in Qatar? The war is going to stop or not? You always have these questions whenever or wherever you are, every single day. And of course, I assure that Fatin and Rula and every journalist face this question. And I always put myself like in this place that you have to give them hope. You have to find the hope in the thing you're saying, whether on TV or even with people one-to-one. This is really hard. And let me go back to about 20 years ago, just to say this and try to connect things together. When me and my boyfriend decided to get married was in 2004. The first thing we both agreed on, like, we don't want to have kids, because it was like intifada, the second intifada. We had like hundreds of from Palestinians, our people are being killed, and Israelis also, some Israelis were being killed, and it was really crazy. And we lived in Bethlehem. I live around the Nativity Church, and we had the curfew over the Nativity. We faced many things in my family. So I didn't want my kids to have kids, in order that I didn't want them to face the same thing. So I was thinking that whenever I decide that I will have kids, me and my husband, of course, there would be peace. That was the idea. Of course, we were talking about 2004. Now we're in 2024. Today was the first day for my daughter in her university. She's studying journalism. And we're still living.
Are you out of your mind? You let her study journalism? Really?
I can't force her to
Oh my
choose.
God.
I gave her advice, but she made up.
I hope you have a brave heart to handle this. I'm sorry.
I always taught my kids, and I always were like telling the students, my students, and the people, that you have to make up your own mind. You have to be strong. I can't now just force her to change. It's not me. So I do not agree with that. Yeah. So what I wanted to say, that this war is not ending. And as Rola said, it didn't start on October 7. Never. No, it didn't start on October 7. I lived the first Intifada. My parents, my grandparents lived in 1948, and what happened in the 40s, 50s, 60s. They always tell us, my grandfather was a martyr who was killed in front of his house in 1967. And we faced lots of things. It didn't start on October 7. It's an ongoing thing. So yes, but the main challenge is that you always need to find hope in any piece, whether you write or whether you're in TV. I'm almost every night on live shows, like tracking the updates, discussing with political analysts and the leaders about the negotiations, the ceasefire, or anything's happening in Gaza. And I always try to dig for the hope in these things in order, yes, you cannot just keep silent and keep, people are frustrated, are really frustrated. We're living in the West Bank. It's not really much better than Gaza. I mean, my heart is in Gaza. I have friends, I have family members in Gaza. I always need to remind everyone that there are even journalists, women journalists. My colleagues are in Gaza. Their children are really very sick. I was talking to one of my colleagues yesterday. Her name is Fida Hilles, Rula, Fida. And her kid is really sick with viruses and these things. And it's really frustrating that this is still happening, and you have always to find hope in between these things. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very sad. I think one of the things that makes us special as Palestinians is that somehow, somewhere, we always find that hope inside us, and it's what keeps us going. Sarah is saying in the chat, Sumud, resilience. It's literally why we're here. And without it, I don't think we can keep surviving. Thank you all for sharing. We do have a few questions in the chat, and Destiny, also, if you have a question, feel free to share. But I'm gonna ask Sarah's first question, which is, are Israelis actually aware about what is happening in the West Bank? Because, in the West Bank and the Palestinian parts, because we've been having a lot of activists, even in Israel, come out and say, hey, this is happening, that is happening. Is the Israeli community listening? So do you have an answer to that? Do you feel any change?
I would love to say yes, but not really. Even the number of left Israeli, like, were fighting and that we saw in the street of Tel Aviv and all this, unfortunately, those are being even attacked by the Israeli government to an extent that a lot of them chose to leave the area and to fight from far away. Yes, we do have voices inside of the Jewish community that are really doing a great, amazing job outside of Israel, fighting over never again means never again to everyone, not just the Israelis. And we see a group of Israeli leftist activists really doing a great job in Jericho, especially with the settlers' attack in the West Bank. But unfortunately, the number is going less and less, because even those are being attacked by their own people and their own government, because any voice that speak away from what this right extreme wing government wants is, like, they're even accusing their own people with being anti-Semitic. Like, I don't understand how a Jew can be an anti-Semitic. There is voices, but we know that as long as those voices does not affect the political alliance in the spectrum, it's hard to believe that they can make a change. Yes, there is voices, but not enough, or they chose to leave instead of fighting because they're being under attack as well.
I can add something to what Fatin just mentioned, that also the Israeli media is not covering what's going on and what is happening in Gaza. And it's only like they are really the censorship around all the videos, all the news coming out from Gaza, what is happening to the civilians, the kids, how the Palestinians are living in Gaza. the killing of the civilians, the kids, and the diseases, and who need support, and what happened to the children, and the way how they are treating them and running from place to another. The Israeli media is not covering that. And I can say that I remember after the first Intifada, late 80s, beginning of 90s, the different Israeli activists and from the Israeli left, like Meretz and others, they used to be active and they used to have different meetings with Palestinians. This really, this government, and I can say maybe the last 10 years since the new government in Israel, and then before that, and since Netanyahu was elected as the prime minister, things was really, the Israeli community is like going towards the right, and they are not paying attention to everything, and like the focus is themselves, and the fight is about things they needed from their government, not about the Palestinians, of what is happening in the West Bank, and the killing and destroying and confiscating the lands, and what the settlers are doing. I don't think that they are really interested in hearing anything about what's going on in Gaza or in the West Bank, what the settlers are doing in the West Bank, and the killing and running after Palestinians. All these stories is not really there in the Israeli media, so they are not really aware of anything besides their needs.
Can I add one thing also related to the Israeli activists? By the way, I have like tens of Israeli activist friends, and some of them are really close friends. They always share with me their photos in the streets, trying to protest and doing things to support the ceasefire, to support the Palestinian case, and to support the two-state solutions, and all these things. I'm really proud of them. I'm proud also to have this kind of relationship. But let me say that we even meet regularly outside the country. Like we go to Cyprus, we meet like in Europe, in Greece, but we cannot meet here in Palestine, where we are like few kilometers away from each other. It's only restricted by the Israeli government, who do not allow us as Palestinians to go to Jerusalem or to any other cities inside the 1967 borders, and the opposite, they do not allow the Israelis. It's also, you know, complicated, but we cannot meet here, but we're close friends. We're really friends. I have really good friends. By the way, also about 3 kilometers from here, from this place where I am now in my house in Beit Sahur, it's only about 3 to 4 kilometers away in Beit Jala. Right now, there are activists, Israeli activists, also foreigners, supporting Qasiyah family. If you had heard about this case, this family, by the way, they own a place, they own a house, they own a land in an area called Al Makhrur in Beit Jala. It's a very charming green area in Beit Jala. It's one of the green areas which left to us as Palestinians. We used to go and hang out there and have our walkings there, family gatherings there. This place they lost, the settlers took like a few weeks ago. It was a restaurant also. It was a very famous restaurant. We used to go there for family vacations, for family gatherings in Christmas or in Easter, or, you know, for anything, any community activity there. Now the settlers took over the place, and people are trying to defend it, to bring their rights back, because it's a Christian family, by the way. And it's not about, you know, Christianity or religion or anything, but in Bethlehem, you can find like Christians or Muslims, and they both face the same regulations, restrictions by the Israelis. So I just wanted to mention about this. And we do have like the Israeli activists and friends, and yes, we're so proud of these kind of connections. And we know that they are being attacked also by their government and the settlers as well.
And Rana, thank you so much for raising this up. Alice is actually, I think she was a classmate, or like she went to school with me. Her face is so familiar, and I believe I saw her last week. And then just a couple of days ago, I found out that she got arrested, her and her mom.
Yeah, I think she was today, I think.
Yeah, if you have actually more information, please share with me, because we're trying to release a statement on that. So that would be very, very helpful. But yeah, I mean, like those are the things that we have to deal with, which is very, very sad, and it shouldn't be happening. There's one last question in the chat that I do want to mention is I have never heard about this award, but it's called Peabody, and Bisan, who is a journalist in Gaza, received it. What do you think about that? What are your thoughts? Bisan, yes, yes. Yes.
Yeah. What those kids did is magical. I know that there's a huge campaign being conducted against them about how they're making money from GoFundMe, whatever, and there's a non-stop target campaign that is being conducted against every Palestinian in Gaza who managed to reach out the voice in there. She's nominated to an Emmy Award, in which also the campaign included 150 famous artists and singers and I don't know what, signing a petition asking Emmy Awards to withdraw the award from her, and they failed because this kid, and she's a kid, trust me, she is a total kid that before the war, her name is Al-Hakawatiyya, and she's a storyteller. She wanted to tell stories simply about hope, about love, about living, about how to live as a young, she didn't want to be a journalist to start with. She found herself stuck with this title, and she did an amazing job. I don't care what you hear about her in social media, because the same campaign is targeting also Mu'taz Azaizeh and Hind al-Khudari and all those voices, subhanallah, by God's will, that managed to break the story internationally. There is a huge campaign to ruin their name. So for me, those kids, I don't think anyone has the right anywhere in the world to ask, what do you think of those kids? Because they are kids. They are simply 22, 21. And I know in the United States that 21 would be like a whole grown-up person who's independent, living away from his family, starting his job, whatever. But in Palestine, 21, 22, you still live under the dreamy world of what you want to be and how it's going to be. So you have to think about them 5 years younger than anyone in the normal age in the United States. They saw the untold. And I speak to Bisan every now and then. Now it's getting hard even to get to her. But all the time she was trying to be strong for everyone. But what she's going through, what everyone in Gaza is going through, and she put her life on TV to put you within what's going on in it. So all the rumors that you hear about it and all the talks, and even like, I know she's doing a great job over there, putting the story, great job also distributing what she's getting. And the campaign raised against her is ugly. No one have the right to judge any single soul in Gaza. Let me put it that way clearly and loudly, because those kids, I was with her on the phone so many times thinking that she's dead. I hear the explosion and I hear, hi, Khalo. I'm sorry, I just came back from traveling, and I need to say hi to those kids because they're monsters and they will not take. أعطيني هج بسرعة وخلينا نخلص.
ايش بتحكي اخبار؟
هون.
كيف تليفونك عم يعطيك الاخبار؟
لازم ارجع اكمل، فهلا بجيكم فوق، اوكي؟ هاي خلص. يلا اطلع فوق، هني جاي. اعطيني هيك كيس كيس كيس.
صدقت لك.
وانا
وين كنت بباريس؟
خلص هذا واجيك.
كنت بباريس؟ تعال.
يلا سكر الباب. Love you. Habibi. I'm sorry, but I haven't seen them for 40 days. So, like, honestly, like, I remember so many times that I hear a big bang, and then suddenly she disappeared, and it took me like 2-3 days to know whether those people are alive or not. Some of them managed to stay, some of them managed to get out. Even them being nominated for an Emmy or for a Nobel Prize. We don't even know if they're going to be alive tomorrow, for God's sake. So don't fight over it. Let it be. If they are the one, and I'm telling you, once again, I've been covering this conflict for 25 years, in which I was shot 3 times. 2 of them was intentionally, like he held the gun up and shot me. It wasn't by mistake. He just held the gun and shot me just because it's okay for him to shoot me. One of the time it was like during the invasion where tanks and like helicopters and all this, and he waited until everything is down and like the operation ended. I took off my vest. He asked me, "Are you finished?" And I said, "Yes, we're putting away their gear." So he waited until I took off my vest and my hat, and then he shot me. And that was in 2007. So if anyone wants to use the excuse of, October 7th bullshit thing, because there's a lot of story that happened before that we've been living the 7th of October for decades and no one ever said anything about it. So what was the point? I totally forgot. ايش كنت بدي احكي؟
I mean, you said things that I didn't know you got shot.
And I failed. This is what I wanted to say. For 25 years, I couldn't deliver the message as Bisan, Mu'taz, Hind, Anas, Ismail al-Ghul, Allah yarhamo, and so many other journalists. Nizar, Wissam, I cannot even stop counting those names, but those kids who just simply with their kids' soul, kids relatively just putting it there without the censorship of I need to watch what this channel want me to say or that channel. No, they put it as it is. And for the first time ever, and this is the only hope that I see out of this genocide happening, and this is the change that I see out of this genocide, is they managed to make the difference on the ground. They managed to open the eyes of that extremist Israeli supportive in the world, that anti-Semitism was a slogan raised to silence everyone in the world, even if it's wrong. And some voices did know that choosing to be silent because of fear is now being clear. Because again, if the Jews say never again to everyone, and now what we're seeing is a new Holocaust broadcasting live by those kids, by Bisan, by Hind, by Mu'taz, by Anas, by Ismail, by Nizar, by Wissam Yassin, by so many names that it will take me a lifetime to put them out there. They are the one who made you people around the world see it real as it's happening without any censorship. Mas.
Yeah. Okay, thank you so much, Faten. I do have slow internet, but thank you so much for sharing. And if you haven't gotten the chance to read the chat, there are some nice comments for all the panelists in there. They're lovely. So thank you so much for being here, sharing your stories, sharing your pain, and also naming all these journalists who either suffered or just sharing their stories and mentioning their names, I think is very, very important. So thank you for sharing their stories and your personal stories as well. And I do want to end with a few things. Maybe Dustin, you can help me with adding some links in the chat. Yes. So if you haven't registered for And Still We Rise, please do. I think it's going to be lovely. We'll have amazing women like the ones who are on our panel here today. And also, don't forget to subscribe to Just Vision's mailing list and the TMAP mailing list. We still have like 3 minutes left. And if Rana or Rula, if you want to have any ending comments or observations, please share.
Actually, I have one thing, but maybe Rula, yeah, go ahead, Rula, please.
Thank you, Rana. I think it's really very important to have this kind of webinars always to link Palestinian women, journalists, and activists to the other women around the world. I think it's important to share our stories and to hear from them, even if they have any questions. I think what's going on in Palestine, especially in Gaza, is really something that people should really be aware of and hear from people on the ground about what is happening and how they can support us and how they can ask and push their government towards doing a lot of work towards asking and pushing their governments for ceasefire. I think what is going there in Gaza should be stopped immediately, and we need really to raise our voices, and we need the support from people around the world to be with us. And this kind of webinars is really supporting us a lot, and hopefully we can do something as women. I really find it really important always to for women to share their stories, and of course if we have men with us, we need your help always. And thank you for this really a great opportunity. I'll send it to you, Rana.
Okay, thank you, Rula. Okay, I just wanted to raise one last thing. As Palestinian Christian this time, not only journalist, but maybe it's a chance for me to send a message to those all over in the churches in the Eastern world and in the US. As a Palestinian Christian, I really do feel disappointed in the last few months from the church community, from the Eastern church community, who left the teachings of the Bible, the teachings of Jesus Christ. We've been we've been raised and born and in churches and in these teachings, and we know, I've been in the US several times, in the churches of the US several times. I always heard about the justice thing, the Bible thing. By the way, I also have a BA degree in theology and Christian studies. That was my first study. And then I shifted to journalism since I thought that we can have things in common, but apparently it's just too far away. The thing that I wanted to say, that the church can do something, especially in the US. The church of the US, whenever it comes to justice, human rights, the teachings of the Bible, please do something. Enough is enough. It's not about Palestine, Arabs, Israelis, or something. It's about right and wrong. It's about occupation and ending the occupation. It's clear. The word of God is so clear, and we can do something. You should do something about it. That's it.
It's about humanity more. It's about humanity. We failed as human beings because if it's okay for one place, it's going to be okay for any other place in the world after that.
Thank you all for being here. It was so lovely. I'm sure our audience enjoyed. I really, really appreciate you all, and hopefully we stay connected in the future. We might have an opportunity or two with Just Vision in the future. I'm not putting more information until we have something solid, but stay tuned.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Close by saying thank you to our panelists. Thanks to all of our attendees. I hope that you'll sign up for our mailing list to stay informed about how you can advocate both with your representatives, for those of you here in the States, and also in your churches and in your communities. It's so important, and we're so inspired, Rula, Rana, and Faten, by your bravery, your courage, and are so grateful to you for being with us today. So thank you to everyone.
Thank you.
Well.
Thank you.